So welcome to another episode of the Talking Balls podcast. The snooker podcast comes out every Wednesday morning. And I'm your host, Michael Wright, Writer74. And just in my other window there is my co-host.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lee. Nice to be here. We've got a great guest tonight. Really looking forward to the chat.
And indeed, we have got a great guest. So we're lucky tonight. We've got a man who very nearly caused some massive headlines the other week. So we're only really just a week after the English Open, and our guest tonight is Mark King. So big welcome to you, Mark.
Hi guys, yeah, nice to be on.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for coming on. So I mean, where to start really, but I mean, maybe it would just be good to get a feel for the season so far. We're a few events in now, and you've just come off an event where a lot of people watched you and you kind of tracked your progress. So how's the season unfolding for you, do you feel?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a slow start. Obviously, with COVID, the last couple of years have been pretty poor in the respect of, obviously, we've lost China so far. So that's had a massive impact on a lot of the players, especially the ones that have done really well, not been able to defend their money.
Yeah.
And then obviously they've been putting these, I say minor tournaments on to sort of counteract it. But in all fairness, it hasn't been good in the respect of, I don't think they've done enough to counteract them China events that we've lost over the past couple of years. I think we had 4 or 5 events a year. So we've lost 10 massive tournaments in respect of financial gain. And then they've counteracted it with very small tournaments and not a lot of money. So someone that has won maybe 100, 150 grand 2 years ago is then, going to have to, literally miracle work themselves to try and get that 150 grand back.
Yeah.
So that's been really difficult. But like for myself, the season's been, I'd say pretty positive. Obviously, after last week, getting to the semi of the English Open, and then probably playing my worst game against Neil out of the whole week was quite disappointing. But still, to play not at nowhere near your best and only just get beat 6-4, I was quite happy in the whole week. Really, on the positive, the week was really good. Obviously, before the start of that week, I was number 60, and then moving up to 30, moving up to 36, which is where I want to be. Going the other way rather than down. I've gone up, which is really good. And I've got beaten a couple of the first rounds a few days before, losing out to Sean Murphy and then losing out to Anthony Hamilton. Just really, really good players I'm getting beat by. Hamilton, I was 3-1 up against Hamilton in, I think it was a European, or I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
I think it was European. I was 3-1 up in control, and then he played 4 superb frames. I missed a couple of balls I shouldn't have done and got me bum smacked. So it was just nice to come off two first round losing tournaments to then get to the semi. It sort of counteracts them a little bit on top. So overall happy with the season so far, as well as I can be, if you like.
Yeah, so the most recent, obviously, there was a lot of attention on you for the English Open, and as you say, you get into the semi-final, and you felt like it wasn't your best performance against Neil, but you still took a lot to be beat. It was a lot to shift you, and in a sense, I mean, you won't want to relive it, but in a sense, you were that close, that blue in the middle there. It just looked like that goes, and you're well away, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, a couple of bad positional shots, and as funny enough, I was talking to another pro today about it, and actually the shot before, I played the red in the green bag. I actually played for the red to hit the cushion, then hit the green and go in, and the white to come around the table and land more in the middle of the table. And I didn't really hit it that good, and I actually potted it without hitting the green, and landed myself really awkward on the side cushion. So obviously the green was too straight to get up for the yellow, and it was right on the cushion. So the only shot to play was blue. And obviously with the yellow being near the blue, I had to play it pretty slowly. And, if the yellow was on the spot and I could have played the blue, normal speed and, just come off the black cushion, side cushion and up to the yellow, I probably would have potted the blue because, it would just been a normal shot. But because I had to hold for the yellow, it just made the shot a bit tougher. And I ain't not being funny, I felt quite nervous. yeah, I was a bit under pressure at the time because I knew how important the shot was. Yeah, and I just missed it. So like, I can deal with that. I can deal with, you know, just sometimes you miss them, sometimes you get them, and yeah, and then after that, I sort of got in. I think that was 4-all, and then and then Neil sort of started getting his mojo a bit, walking around the table a lot quicker in the final stages. And yeah, I didn't really get that many opportunities after that. I think I made 28 in the next frame, got out of position again, surprise, surprise, and missed the red to the middle. It was an all-out shot. I knew if I missed it, it was probably game over. And then the last frame, I went for a long red, absolutely thought I'd got it, ding-a-linged it in the black hole, and then he cleared up. So yeah, just absolutely no, you know, no negative thoughts on that match. It was just a couple of shots here and there. And you just deal with it. You know, some days the blue goes in and you win, and other days you rattle the blue or you play a better positional shot and you're 5-3 up, first to 6 and in control. But it was when you're playing the big boys and they get their mojo a little bit, it's a lot tougher to beat them players.
Of course, Mark, we spoke about that blue that you missed, and you were sort of holding for the yellow. It's obviously, if you're under a little bit of pressure, you'd rather play a more positive shot rather than
absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. As I said, if you're playing the normal shot in and out of the black end up for the yellow on the spot, it's a more positive shot, and you can cue it, and you know, just sort of not throw your arm at it, but you can just release yourself. But when you're playing a slower shot, you've got to hit it perfectly. You've got to get the weight of the blue and then the weight to the white to down the yellow. Yeah. And you know, there's a few different elements in it. So, you know, it just wasn't hit great, to be honest.
Yeah, and of course after that, Neil sort of took his chances a bit better. Then he started playing a lot better. And of course it's a fine line because he was taking the frames out in one visit. I think he made, was it 1 or 2 centuries after that?
3. I think he made 3 tons in the whole game. Yeah. So, but I feel though in all aspects early on, I did have him going because he was walking around at a lot slower tempo to start with. I think when I didn't actually hear the interview, but after he played Kyron, I think he sort of said, "Oh, I'm not going to get bogged down. I'm going to go for my shots and blah blah blah." And I never heard the interview, but he just did not do that. He played totally the opposite. He played really negative and, you know, walked around the table when the obvious shot was on. And to me, that's someone who's under pressure.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to a couple of players since, and they've said the same thing. When Neil's under pressure, he tends to walk around and just looking at nothing, if I'm honest. And then when he got his towel up at 4-all, he started doing what he normally does, gets down, plays a shot and makes it look really simple.
Yeah.
Is that helpful for you in a way, Mark? You know, if you pick up on another player acting in a different way, like I suppose there must have been something in you thinking, I've got him rattled here. I know he's not happy. I can tell he's not happy.
Yeah, well, I walked out at 4-2 thinking like I'm 4-2 up and I ain't really played yet. Yeah. So I'm obviously gone to the toilet delighted. So yeah, but it's just the way the game goes. Sometimes you can look at all the stats and everything's in your favour and you can still lose. But sometimes the balls go a little bit scrappy, you know, and then the Reds go scrappy, and then it ends up just like a scrappy, you know, not very good frame to watch. A lot of safety and not a lot of break building. So sometimes you have to win ugly. People like Selby, and Selby is an unbelievable player. But an unbelievable player that can win when he's playing his B, C, and D game. Yeah. And that's a great attribute to have. All right, it might not look pretty, and people might go, "Oh, he's so boring," and "Oh, I can't watch him," and all that. But I'll tell you what, I'll swap places with him all day long. I'd rather be the worst player to watch and have all them trophies at home and a nice few shekels in the bank. Do you know what I mean? He's like, people make you laugh. All these armchair critics. Oh, how has he missed that? And why didn't he do that? And why? And you just think, oh, mate, like, I went back to my seat a couple of times after I'd missed. And someone in the crowd kept tutting. And I went in the end, what'd you keep tutting for? Like, I felt like giving him a cue and going, listen, mate, you go and try and play, for 70 grand and pay the bills. You know, let's see how many balls you pot when you've got to play for your livelihood. You know, all these people that armchair critics, oh, you can't miss that and do this. And all the best players in the world when they're sitting in their armchair. Listen, you have the plums to go out there. 5-all when you're playing, you know, for $6.5 when you haven't got a pot to piss in. It's difficult, you know. And they haven't just not got a clue. And some people just feel like chinning them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that go out there, Mark. They would not be able to hold their cue. You know, it's such a high pressured situation to be in, and obviously you're on TV. You're playing the best players in the world. You're playing for your living. You know, it's harder than just playing snooker.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like me picking up a football and then someone going to me, right, here's a penalty. You've got to score this and, you know, win the FA Cup or something. And like, you know, I'd be pooping myself. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I could do this, because you've got to be, you know, you're actually really good at something, and that is your, you know, your thing to the world. You can play football, you can do this, you can do that. And I think, yeah, I can play snooker. And it's, you know, it's like me going up to someone and going like, as a plasterer, and going, oh, I'll plaster this wall. Just give me that trowel and a bucket of gear, and I'll plaster the wall. No chance. It's an art in itself.
I think the problem is, Mark, when people see it on the TV, the players, they make it look so easy that they think, you know, I could do that. But in reality, they can't.
Well, it's
either
just
that these guys are so good.
It's either that, or they see you playing well and they see how good you are, and then they see something where it doesn't go right, and then think, well, I've just seen how good he is. How did he do that?
Yeah. How did he miss that? And I get that. I mean, you know, as other players will tell you, if another professional approaches me and goes, oh, do you know what, you was playing a little bit slow against Neil, or you was doing this against Neil, I take it on board because he's a fellow professional. Yeah. He knows what he's talking about and he knows my game. But when you got just Mr. Tom, Dick and Harry in the crowd who's got his pint of lager in his hand, paid £4 to come and watch play, and then he wants to tell you what you're doing wrong and tutting and all that, you just want to go, oh, mate, do yourself a favour, go and have a day off.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, Lee, haven't we? We've talked about how much players notice the crowd, or notice, you know, little movements or noises or things people are saying, or even just, you know, almost, well, I can't remember who it was, or whether it was Joe Perry, but somebody said they remember almost anticipating the reaction when they missed a shot. And that was getting in their heads, because they were thinking, if I miss this, everyone's going to go, ooh. And they're almost half ready for it before they played the shot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there was a couple of points. I can't remember what frame it was. I think it was frame 6, and a guy, Neil, left me the green in the green bag, and there was 3 guys sitting in the front row. And as I was playing the shot, they was all talking to each other, and I could see their heads moving and bubbling about. So I got up, got back down, and in the end, I went, can you just be quiet, please, and keep still, like in a polite enough manner? Yeah. And they did. But, you know, when you think, like, what are you actually doing? You're watching the game. If you want to go and have a chat and talk about whatever, gambling or football, go and sit at the back so we can't see you, and have as much chit-chat as you want and head movement as much. But when you're sitting in the front row, you've got to respect the players where they are. Listen, if I was playing the black in the black pocket, I wouldn't even see them, so fair dinkum. But if I'm playing in their line of sight, just have a little bit of like, my God, a bit of decorum, a little bit of like, you know, just some people are just oblivious to anything going on around them, honestly. And they was like 3 young guys, and I was like, well, whatever, mate, just bloody keep still, for God's sake.
Yeah. It's a bit like cricket, isn't it? They do that with cricket when they're kind of behind the bowler's arm or whatever. They kind of look out for the line of sight and stop play, people moving or whatever. And I mean, I went to one night. I went to the Wednesday. It was the night when you were playing Tom Ford.
Okay.
And they're quite strict on the old thing about not moving between frames. So if you go out for the loo between frames, if you don't get back in just as the frame's starting, that's you out for the frame. That you've got to sit out there. You can watch it on TV. So they're quite strict on that one. I did wonder about that, because obviously you played Tom on the. I think you were at the end table there. And then, of course, you've got the TV table with Neil and Sonny Akani, and then you had Judd Trump on there as well later with Steve Hallworth. And you mentioned the pressure and the attention. Did it feel? I don't know how it feels. You know, you've got what I noticed most starkly really that night was that you had loads of fans there for the TV game. You had a few in the next one, and then by the time they got to your end of it, even though you two are well respected and well known players, there wasn't so many fans down that end, was there?
Yeah. I mean, that's just down to, you know, the people like Neil and Trump are more, not to say more experienced, but because they're more winners, and I would say they've got more of a fan base, that people would rather go and watch them play than probably watch me and Tom play. And I understand that. It's just their own preference. If I was playing in London, I'd get loads of people. When I've played at the Masters before, you know, I've had like 80, 100 people come and watch me play.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know, when I played Jimmy, it was packed out in the conference centre back in, I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was packed out. And like, my family and a couple of others were for me, and then the whole of the others were for Jimmy White. You know what I mean? But that's just the way it is. A lot of the time when we go to China, apart from the match tables, which would be like Ding and Ronnie, your Trumps, Selby's, there'll be quite a lot in there. But even when Ding's playing, it's mobbed. When Ronnie's playing, there's still a few, but not as much as Ding. And then, you know, the outside tables, there's the 2 security guards and they're asleep.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? With their phones on or something. And yeah, that's just the way it is. It's just one of them things. It's a bit like Wimbledon, isn't it? Like, when someone's on centre court, everyone's watching, and then you'll have someone else playing on, you know, court 26, and there might be 20 people watching. But that's just the game. You've just got to literally get on there, play the table, play your opponent, and come off. And then, you know, when you get like the next day, when I was playing Trump, it was great. Or sorry, the day after, because it was mobbed and it was a real good atmosphere, and you felt alive again. You felt like, oh my God, this is how, like, what we remember when, you know, the back end of a tournament, you know, it's packed out. And then you look at the Ronnie, I think it was Ronnie Higgins game. There was still quite a few empty seats, which I was quite surprised about, because that is, you know, that is probably the cream of the crop match to watch.
Yeah.
You know, two like, I shouldn't call them veterans, but they always seem to call me a veteran. And they don't call up Williams a veteran, or O'Sullivan or Higgins. I mean, like, I'm only a couple of years older than them, and I'm the veteran, you know, this old veteran. And, you know, like, what they call them boxers? A journeyman. Oh yeah, Mark Allen called Mark Allen called me a journeyman once, and I was like, "Are you joking?" A journeyman has 150 fights, wins 12, gets knocked spark out every week, and just picks his salary up. And I think, well, I feel like I'm a little bit better than a journeyman, if I'm honest. I've been in the top 16 a few times, you know, and just to be called a journeyman.
Mark,
sorry,
you've had 31 seasons on tour.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it's quite an incredible, you know, run. It's a great career in anybody's book.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about it, and I'm actually quite proud that ever since I've come on the tour, I've never fallen off the tour.
Yeah.
I've never gone off, come back on, or got a wild card, or, you know, a 2-year card like some of these people have got now. And they seem to be giving them out quite randomly and quite freely. You know, Jimmy got another one. I think Ken got one last year. And the 2 young girls, Onyi and Rhiannon Evans, both got one. You know, is what it is. You can't script on who gets them, and I don't know what the criteria is, but I would hope that if the time comes and I do fall off, I'd like to think that my services in snooker would say, well, do you know what? He's been a pro X amount of years. You know, he deserves a 2-year tour card. And then that's it. Once I've had my 2-year tour card, if I'm still battered at the bottom, then, like, you can say, thank you very much. I've enjoyed my time. You know, good luck, and give it to, you know, a youngster, someone who deserves it more than I do.
So do you quite agree with the tour cards, the wild cards back on the tour?
No. Certainly don't.
No. No, I know there's been quite a bit of controversy about the tour cards and stuff. Do you feel that it's taken somebody's spot, basically?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love Jimmy. Jimmy's a real good pal of mine. And I think Mark Allen said, he's had a few tour cards in his time, Jimbo, and he's had a few wild cards, which I get. But I think he's at the stage now where, I don't want to sound disrespectful, because I love Jimmy. I've known him a long time and he's a great player, but he's had his time. he's had, you know, no disrespect to him, he ain't going to win a tournament again.
No.
And he'd probably say the same about me, but I don't think he'll win a tournament again. And if he does win one, I'll hold my hands up and go, do you know what, Jim? I didn't think you had it in you anymore. But these youngsters that are coming through that are missing out on Q School because they're playing people that have just fell off the tour and got straight back on, that are really sharp and, you know, they're still really good players. I mean, there was some players in the Q School this year that were just amazing players that you can't believe, you know, come off like people like, I think, I can't remember his name, but a Chinese guy, Wan Sijun, I think his name is. And then you had like Sam Craigie, the Newcastle guy, and he's an unbelievable player. And to think that he's had to go off and come back on again. But yeah, I just think, you know, love Jimmy, but I just don't think he should have been given it. And
what you're saying is that it should be based on merit. It shouldn't be on anything else. And everyone's trying to make a living. I mean, that's what's coming across anyway to us.
Absolutely. You got players that are getting tour cards that I think someone won the World Amateur a couple of weeks ago, and they get a 2-year tour card. Yeah, they deserve it. They've just gone to another country. They've played every other amateur, the best in their countries all over the world, and they have come out on top, beating other English players, Chinese players, Latvian players, wherever you want to put them, and they've got through and they've won. So that I think Brown, what's his name? Oliver Brown, who won it. You know, he deserves his 2-year tour card. He has worked his socks off, and he has got through a really, you know, a hard school of amateurs to get through, and he deserves it because he's gone through all that stage. Now, if Jimmy would have gone to the amateurs and then gone and won it, I'd have gone, fair enough, Jimmy, you deserve your 2-year card. But like, you know, he's doing Eurosport and he's doing all like, so it ain't like if he don't play anymore, he can't make a living, because he does really well at the punditry and the commentary. So he's got the sideline. Most of the players these days have just got snooker, and that's it. You know.
Yeah, it seems that there's not as much pressure, you know, on Jimmy's snooker. You know, it's more a hobby for him because he's got other things in the pipeline.
Yeah, and I think obviously if he dropped off again, I think it'd be next year. They'll probably give him another one. So in some respects, there is absolutely no pressure on him. No pressure on him. And probably the same for Ken Doherty. Ken Doherty got a 2-year card as well. And it'll probably be the same for him. It'll be like, you know, we'll give him another 2-year card. I was talking to a few players the other week about it, and they said the same as me. They think that you should get one, excuse me, you should get one tour card for free if you had good services to the game, and then that's it. And I agree with that, because there's new blood waiting to come through. There's new blood. You know, as I said, when I fall off, I'd like to think I've had my services rendered, and I'll tell you what, you can have a 2-year card. Once that 2-year card's up, if I ain't stayed on the tour, then I'm going to go, do you know what? Give it to a young guy that's coming through, because I've had my time and I'm not good enough to stay on. And I'll hold my hands up and go, do you know what? Give it to someone else. Fair enough. No, absolutely no complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, we had Peter Devlin on the other week, and you know, young fella coming through, and he was saying exactly that. You know, he feels it's quite hard to break through, and he's seeing all of this about, you know, the ranking system and the money as well. He was talking about how there's such a almost outweigh, you know, the top end of it, how much money's in the game at the top end versus sort of 50 downwards, I suppose. But anyway, around that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how you can play. See, like last week, you had 128 players that went to the English Open, apart from the top 16 because they were seeded. So theoretically, you had 128, less certain amount. So then you've got the top 16 players that are seeded straight through to that, the last 96 or whatever. So then the top 16 player will play his first round at the venue, play a match, and then his second round match, he will play someone that's gone there cold.
Yeah.
So yet again, top 16 player are getting the cream again. They're getting, you know, a little bit of an advantage. You know, people like I think you said about Stephen Hallworth. Stephen Hallworth was qualifying for somewhere. Can't remember where it was. Do you know what? They was qualifying, I think, in Barnsley. Yeah. Anyway, he got seeded against a 16 player. So he had to fly to Ireland to play a top 16 player, paid for the flight, paid for the hotel, paid for the taxi. He got beat, whatever, 4-3 by Maguire, right? And he got 0.
Yeah.
Wrong, isn't it?
Now,
It's
how
wrong,
is that
isn't
fair? He should have been qualifying in Barnsley, playing Stephen Maguire. You know, one night's hotel, bit of petrol, Bob's your uncle. He goes to Ireland, plays a first round match, gets nothing.
Yeah.
But I think if them games are held over, I really do think that the players should be on a little bit of money, whether it's free, £200, £400, just to pay their expenses. I really do. They was doing it before, a few years ago in the PTCs, when your game got held over, when your game got held over in China, you was given £2,000 as like pay for your flight, and then a little bit of spending money, which was fair enough. But for some reason, they've started, obviously, the top 16 players are now seeded through, and it's just gone back to how it was before. And it's just ludicrous. It's just the same again. The top 16 players are getting, you know, treated better than the lower ranked players. And, you know, I played five matches to get to the last 4, 164, 32, 16, 84. I played 5 matches. You play your first round for £3,000, your second round for 1,000, your third round for £3,500, fourth round for £2,500, and then quarters to the semis is £10,000. Semis to the final is £10,000. So you play 5 matches to get £10,000. You play 1 match for £10,000, and then another match for £10,000. It just don't make sense. And I've said it all along. No matter what sport you're in, you should be playing for denominations of bigger prizes as you get to that stage.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't go 3,000, 1,000, 3,500. It should go 3,000, 3,500, 4,000. So you don't play the golf and the top prize gets £1 million, and then like second gets £3 and a Kit Kat. Do you know what I mean? It's just oh my God, I just don't understand it. Whether I just don't know what I'm talking about, but for me, it's just really ludicrous, and I just don't know how they come up with these sums. Sometimes they should maybe, you know, take a bit off the top and just siphon it down a little bit, because as Peter Devlin said, you know, it's ludicrous. The top prize is, you know, a silly money. I think the top prize for the world was 500. The second prize got 200. You know, it's quite a big jump. £300,000 watch. You know, that's a hell of a lot of money. That's why you know, Trump keeps losing his #1 spot, because Selby won the World Championship, got £500,000, and Judd won, I think, 5 or 6 comps, but because they were smaller than the World Championships, it makes a massive difference.
Do you think the money for the World Championship, as you said, it's like 500,000? Do you think that's for, you know, like World Snooker to say we're playing for $500,000? Because it's a lovely sounding sum, you know, $500,000. So do you think that's why the first prizes are so big compared to?
Yeah, because all it is, it's Barry Earn making a statement that, Carl, look, they're playing for, you know, £500,000. They're playing for £200,000, and they're playing for like 100,000 or 80 grand or something. But then they're not saying, oh, by the way, the semi-finals is only 20 grand, or the semi-finals is only 50 grand. And it should just work that the denominations each match get bigger and bigger, so there's more of a pot. And if the first prize is a little bit smaller, then that's how it should be. But you know, you can't put brains in coconuts, as far as I'm concerned. It's just really gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's as the prize goes up, that's rewarding the player for having a good run, you know. Yeah,
it's a bit like, I think the European, I think it might be the Tempodrome Berlin is an absolutely unbelievable tournament. Unbelievable. The Tempodrome is my favourite venue on the planet. I didn't qualify. I got beat by Murphy. So anyway, the prize money for that is first round nothing, second round 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, come on, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're in 3, 4. You're in like the quarterfinals, and you're on £6,000. I mean, come on, it's just absolutely ludicrous. Ludicrous. And apparently, I don't know whether this is correct, but we are doing loads and loads of qualifying at like all these different venues, and they're live streaming it to the bookies, to the bookmakers.
Right.
And they're making a hell of a lot of money from these two tables. A hell of a lot of money. So why are they not throwing it back at us? Because, you know, we've had a really poor 2 years with losing China.
Yeah.
Why don't they throw it back? If they're making like £500,000 in a couple of weeks, why don't they say, do you know what? We're going to put 250,000 back into the game because they've lost China. But they're not doing that. I just don't think they're doing a good enough job. Oh, got such an issue, no, sorry. it's just.
I think though, Mark, you're reflecting the things that we're hearing from quite a few people. I mean, and I think this is something we need to keep that conversation on all the channels, on the social media, on everything, because you know, it seems moral. I mean, it's nothing to do with me, but it seems morally and ethically wrong to have people going and plying their trade and not really even getting paid for it, and not being able to make a living off it. You know, you're on the tour, you're a professional player.
I was actually chatting to Chris Henry about it, and he said, well, to be honest with you, he said, even the first round players are actually entertaining people. They're entertaining people in their chairs. You know, if they're watching, obviously not for me, but, you know, Bet365 or Ladbrokes or William Hill all got these, you know, sites you have to click on to watch the matches. I just watch it on Eurosport Player. But so theoretically, I always said, why don't, I know it's never going to happen, but the first round winner will win £3,000. Why don't they have the first round winner get 2,750 and then have the first round loser getting £250 to pay for his expenses?
Yeah.
Why don't they do that? They're never ever going to do it because Barry said, oh, you shouldn't pay for first round losers, blah, 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 which I can sort of understand. But if you're someone who's just come new onto the tour, every second round match, you're going to play a top 8 player.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them players are never going to win that game. Never. And that's not being rude to the players that are coming on the tour, but they're never going to win that game to start off with. Might get a couple of years under their belt and then win one. But the first couple of years, I'd be very surprised if a new player, not talking about a player coming back on, but a new player that comes on the tour to beat a top 8 player in their first 2 years is highly unlikely. And if they do it again, I would say, do you know what? Well done. You've done amazing. But over the period of them 2 years, they are definitely 100% going to lose money.
Yeah. And then and that's the bit, isn't it? It's a bit about, because Barry Hearn said something, didn't he, about not rewarding mediocrity or something. And
just, you know, cracks me up.
One of the people on Twitter who talks to us a lot, calls himself Mountain Man, so there's a shout out to him. And he was saying that, he said exactly that in a message. He said, look, how come, he's listened to the Peter Devlin thing, and he said, well, how come that this thing about not rewarding mediocrity, and then he's handing out wildcards everywhere, and he's he's contradicting himself, because when it suits, he'll put the right people on as he wants, but at the same time,
listen, can I just stop for 2 seconds? Is that all right? We're right to stop.
So we're just talking about the ranking system. You've really got me and Lee talking, Mark, because the one thing that sticks out is that when it's a player who's in the kind of 70, 80 in the world, 90, whatever, you kind of think, well, it's going to be tough for you. But when you've got somebody in your position and you're looking at that top 30 and however high you can go, and you're saying there's a problem with the ranking system and the money. So,
I think there's been lots of changes in the ranking system over the years. And when they was tinkering with it and that sort of stuff, and then there was the best thing that ever happened was they did a 2-year ranking system where whatever you earn over the 2-year period, you'd sort of either protected or you lost, and people's rankings went up and down and back to front and all that. And it was really helpful for some players, because some players the 2 years before earned nothing. People like, I think at the time, Martin Gould hadn't hardly won a game. And then 2 years later, he started absolutely flying. And then because he never had no money to protect 2 years before, points, he just shot up the rankings. And he was like in the top 16 or 9 in the top 16. So it helped him, but other players, it never. But what happened was, over the 2 year period, then people leveled out. So then after the 2-year period where someone got lucky or someone was unlucky, people got to their ranking position fairly. And every other player, any other player you speak to, that is the most fairest system it's ever been. The rankings were fair. If you dropped out to 16, it's because you weren't good enough. You didn't play as good, blah, blah, blah. And then Barry Earn coming in, right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Everyone's going to start from round 1. No one's going to be on any money. And, it's going to be like the golf and blah, 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 blah. And then it hit the fan. Again, we're just having, people, starting in round 1. And like I rang Barry straight away and I went, are you joking? I went, I ain't not being rude, Barry, but I've earned my ranking.
Yeah.
I'm in the top 16 because I've earned it. I've been an apprentice for my game for a long time. And I feel as though I've earned it. And to be seeded through to the latter stages is where I should be because I've earned it. If I'm number 60 in the world, then I'm tiered down as it should be.
Yeah.
But then, you start in round 1, you're on nothing, and then like you try and get a mortgage, hello there, this is Santander, I want to get a mortgage for £300,000. So what's your current earnings then? Well, I think I'm guaranteed £250 in the shootout, but apart from that, I'm not guaranteed anything. So just let's just roll with this, shall we? And just give me we've got no chance. We've got absolutely no chance. And I really do think that I know Barry will say or whatever, but at the end of the day, if you're at the top of your sport, you should be guaranteed some form of income.
Yeah.
Whether there be 1 tour or 2 tours. There's too many players on the tour for a start. There should be 64 players and 16 players coming on and off. Secondary tour, a bit like the golf. They have the secondary tour, another tour. There's 3 or 4 tours. When you get to the top tour, you should be on decent money.
Yeah.
And, and at the moment, players that are coming on the tour, unless they're special, they will lose money every single year until they, do their apprenticeship and get up the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the game?
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but you said something earlier about what Barry Earn said about mediocre. You don't like mediocrity, whatever. So without people that are mediocre, how are you going to have anything in life? Because at some stage, Ronnie O'Sullivan was a mediocre snooker player. At some stage, Stephen Hendry was a mediocre. At some stage, Steve Davis, Jimmy White, all them players at some stage were just mediocre at snooker. And then they learnt their craft. So without the mediocre people in any sport, you would not have a sport. Do you know what I mean? Without them journeymen at boxing, who would them people fight to get on their way up to the top? Anthony Joshua, I think he fought a dustman, 2 postmen, a homeless man, and 2 people working in Tesco's before he got his world title fight. Without them mediocre people, Anthony Joshua would have had to fight, the top echelon straight away. And where would he be? Exactly where he is now. Absolutely crap.
And also it sends a signal, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know his thinking. Obviously, he's moved on in terms of the running of it all, and it'll be interesting if anything changes. But you almost think of it in terms of it's a bit dog eat dog, isn't it? Because on one hand, you all seem to. Well, it sounds like most of the players tend to get on. I don't know if there's more to it. Yeah, it sounds like it's a fairly good group, and they all wish each other well. But at the same time, the tour isn't really looking after the players. Once you get put beyond a certain point, it's not looking after the tour players and saying you're the cream of the crop across the world. We need to really harness and give you a great experience.
So. I mean, it's a bit like, you go to these events and you only got a decent hotel rate. They give you a hotel rate and it's dearer than bookings.com.
Yeah.
So like, it's just really, really small things that really need to be looked at, and it's just not even even silly things like at the last tournament, the English Open, you had 4 tables that were live streamed on Eurosport Player, which was really, really good. So if you wanted to watch table 4, you could watch it. It weren't like, you watch table 1 streaming table 2 and 3 and 4 you had to just guess. So why don't they have like some players that that ain't earning a lot of money, have them commentate on table 3 and 4. Just your normal player. Give them like a couple of £100 for the day and say, there you go. There's the microphone. just let's give you some commentary. Let's see how good you can do. And the people that are good at it, they can do it again. The people that are not so good say, look, you need to work on your commentary. We might have you back again if you get a bit better. But them sort of things of what they got to start doing. They got to start doing it so the lower ranked players or any players can just earn a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And just have a little bit on the side. I think Ian Burns did like a stats thing where he had to keep pressing buttons and he got like 2.5 for the day, which is good.
Yeah.
He was out the tournament. He got a couple of quid. He did 2 or 3 days. Nicked 750 quid. You know, good on him.
They did it in the Championship League, didn't they? They did that with some of the players. I remember the one I remember the most. It's just because it was funny. And it was Peter Lyons. He was doing the commentary. And they did that in the Championship League. And it was the one where, Lee, I've mentioned this one before. It was the one where I can't remember which player, but he did the Mark Williams break. But he hit the black on the way up to the top of the...
Right, okay. I mean, like, there's been a few instances where I think it's the shootout, where they have loads of players in the commentary box, just, you know, commentating on the next match.
Yeah.
And that's ideal because it gives you a chance to listen to some players, whether, you know, they're good at commentary or not.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And it's good for the public as well. You know, hear different voices and get an insight into how they're seeing the game. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And the quicker that, you know, the newer blood coming and commentate, the better, because the old guard, as much as I like them, are still playing, you know, your 80s snooker. They're not looking at the game like we look at it. And that's just the way it is. So hopefully it will change sooner or later.
So what do you think, Mark, of the current stock of commentators? I know John and Dennis are moving on at next year's World Championships.
Yeah, I think McManus is amazing. I think Folds is really good. Ken's really good. Hendry loves Ronnie, simple as that. It's just, there's lots. I don't want to sound rude, but I just don't agree with commentators not being snooker players. You know, people like Dave Hendon does a good job, don't get me wrong, but should he be commentating on snooker? Not really. You know, a couple of the other lads, I don't know who they are, but they're not snooker players. You know, they're just winging it most of the time, where like a snooker player that's commentating on a snooker match will 9 times out of 10 know the next shot or know what they're going to do. You know, they're going to smash into the pack and, you know, I don't know. It's just why are they picking people? Again,
I think Dave Hendon's, I think he's great for, obviously he's had a long time and for being a journalist, but I have noticed some of the other journalist commentators haven't quite got a grasp on the ins and outs of snooker. You know, and there's so many shots that are called wrong. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got nothing against them, you know, doing their stuff, and you know, at the end of the day, they've only been asked to do a job. But I think at some stage, you got to turn around and go, well, do you know what? Let's get some proper snooker players in here, and you know, that are going to know the shots. They might get the odd one wrong, where you know Ronnie might play one of his silly shots, or Trump might, and then you'll get it wrong. But 9 times out of 10, you'll guess the right shot because you're an active snooker player yourself.
But of course, as well, it's not just about calling the shots. It's about what the player playing the shots are thinking. You know,
sorry, I've got the itchiest nose. I'm really sorry. Oh my God, look like I've been on the shovel, didn't I? Oh my God, it's just so itchy. Yeah, go on. Sorry about that. Sorry, Lee.
Yeah, I was just saying. You know, it's not just about calling the shots though on the screen. It's getting an insight into how the player's thinking, and a fellow snooker player will know how the guy in the table's thinking. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, you've got certain people that you can just tell by their mannerisms on how they're thinking. You know, you got your players that get the ump all the time. You got the players that don't show, you know, wouldn't show you a grain of rice if it was there. They're so poker faced, and then you got, as I said, you got other players you can see when they're getting the ump. And you've got other players that might show a little bit of emotion, or you might go, oh, my God, oh, he never shows emotion. Oh, he must be a little bit rattled, or just something a little bit different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's as you say, it's just some people are just winging it. And just ain't really good enough. Because the golfers, when you listen to the commentary on the golfers, they know the ins and outs of every single player. Ins and outs, you know, how they're thinking. And yeah, this ain't really like, I don't know, Wolf, whatever his name is, or McIlroy. You know, it's not really like him. He's normally good over his putting. And what's he thinking? And then someone else would go, oh, well, you know, he's probably thinking about the pressure of, you know, if he holds this, he'll go down the last with a shot lead. And, you know, exactly. And the others, he's just winging it.